Okay, so what is the concept of a pativrata? So I think the concept of a pativrata these days is one of the most controversial things about Hinduism's treatment of women. Like, this is kind of what we constantly get hammered on. So I want us to talk a little bit about whether this is something we should be getting hammered on, is it something we should not be getting hammered on, what's even going on here? So first of all, what is this concept? So a pativrata, so pati is husband, and vrat is like what you follow. It's a discipline and I would say almost puja-like, right? So pativrata is someone who follows their husband, and already there, like everyone's warning bells are going off. Like you can't just stand in front of a crowd and say, oh, like one of the most important things for a married woman is she needs to follow her husband. It's like, oh my God, what is that? Why are you being like this? So what do people think that word means? Submissiveness, right? So you're following your husband, so anytime he says something, I can spell. You have to do it. There's a bit in there about being chaste, whatever that means. Like you have to be pure, you have to be perfect. Like somehow women are not allowed to have the same urges human beings in general have. Not if you want to be a good Hindu woman at least. And then there's this idea of just powerlessness. They don't have the power to change anything because they just have to follow their husbands. So these are kind of the ideas. Can anyone else think of like something else they would want to add to this list of like general misconceptions that come with the idea of pativrata, or what you might think are like this is what that word means? So these are kind of the ideas that come out with this word pativrata. This is what makes it so controversial. This is what makes people like get so angry when people say this is what you need to be a good Hindu woman. So we're going to kind of break that down a little bit and try to understand. But also in our scriptures, they don't just say you have to be a pativrata. They give examples of who the great pativratas are, which makes our job easier because we can just see what they did and then see what we think of that. So there's 7 of them. I can only remember 6 of them off the top of my head. So feel free to add on. So Sita is one of the pativratas, and then Draupadi is one of them. Mandodari. So Sita we all know, Draupadi we know, we've been talking about her all day. Mandodari is Ravana's wife. Savitri, we're not going to get into who she is in great detail. Rohini, Anasuya, and then is Tara?
Tara,
Yep.
yes.
So that's the 7th, yes. And Tara. So these are the 7 pativratas. So they're given to you as examples of this is what the perfect woman is supposed to be like. Yes.
Can you just briefly like
talk about who the rest of them are? Yeah. So we'll talk about them over the course of the presentation. So I'm not going to get into it right now. Now, so these are the 7 pativratas. They're supposed to be the perfect woman. They're supposed to be the people we follow. In addition to this list of 7, I'm going to put down this one name, Rukmini. So for people who don't know who Rukmini is...
Wait, going back real quick, where is this word pativrata from?
And where is that
word from? And what text or what?
So it's referred to in many texts. So one primary source that will work well with what we're talking about is in the Ramayana. When Rama and Sita go to the forest, among the many things they do, they see Anasuya, who's one of the Mahabharatas. And there's a whole conversation between Anasuya and Sita, so at this point, Sita is more or less freshly married. The Ramayana hasn't happened yet. So Anasuya is already seen as a Mahabharata, and she tells Sita how to be a good wife. And there's a whole chapter, and we're going to talk about that some more later, but there's a whole chapter where she tells Sita what it means to be a good wife, and she raises Rohini and Savitri as examples of good wives, and they have that conversation.
Okay.
Later, like in the Mahabharata, there's a similar conversation between Draupadi Rukmini and Satyabhama. So so Krishna has 8 primary wives. Like these are the 8 wives that everyone knows about. Of those, the 2 most famous are Rukmini and Satyabhama. Rukmini is his the first woman he marries, and she's supposed to be the most devoted, like the perfect wife of Krishna. Whereas Satyabhama is a lot more similar to our modern ideals of what a wife is supposed to be. Like she's possessive of her husband. She kind of wants him for herself, wants him to spend time with her, no other woman, just her. And that doesn't work so well when your husband has 16,108 wives. So there's a lot of conflict that comes from Satyabhama's personality. And Satyabhama is a reincarnation of Mother Earth. And Rukmini is seen as a reincarnation of Lakshmi. Because Sri Devi and Bhudevi are Vishnu's wives, right? So it's not that Satyabhama is seen as doing something bad, but it's conflict causing in this environment that she's in. But Rukmini is seen as just the ideal wife. She's devoted, she's chaste, she's perfect, she sees Krishna as God. So I'm kind of putting her on this list even though she's not one of the official 7, because she's someone who's seen as a perfect wife, and therefore it's worth looking into what that means. So those are wives. So let's take a look at their lives and see how they work with these concepts. So first of all, submissiveness. Your husband tells you something, you just do it. That's kind of the concept that people have of that's what an Indian woman is supposed to be like, a Hindu woman, a good Hindu woman, or a Pativrata. And so let's look at the Ramayana. So we've talked about the Ramayana before, but looking at it from a perspective, and we're going to look at all of these stories a little different than we have in conversations we've had previously, because we're looking at them less as spiritual knowledge at this point and more just as practical guides. This is how they lived their life, so let's kind of try to analyze that a little bit. So everyone's familiar with the general story structure of the Ramayana, right? Rama is born, he's a great prince, everyone adores him, he gets married to Sita, his father wants to make him king. His father has 3 wives, so he's the son of the first wife. The third wife grows scared that, oh no, she loves Rama dearly, but she gets scared in that moment. She's told bad words, and she says, oh no, if Rama becomes king, then my son will just have to spend the rest of his life serving him. And that kind of takes over her mind, and she asks her husband to banish Rama to the forest. And her husband owes her a boon from before, so he says, okay, yes, well, I have to do it. I don't want to, but I have to send him to the forest. So Rama goes to the forest, and Sita follows him, and Lakshmana follows him, and they're all going to the forest. So that's the first point of conflict we see in the Ramayana between Rama and Sita. So his father has told Rama he needs to go to the forest. Rama will obey. And he comes back to his own palace from Kaikeyi, his mother's palace. And then he tells Sita, look, this happened. My father's telling me to go to the forest. I'm going to go do that. But you're a princess. You should stay here. You should live in all of this luxury. And so as we said, we should talk about what a husband should be like and what a wife should be like, right? Rama's life in the forest would be so much easier if he said, okay, come with me. Whatever, you might suffer, you might not, who cares, just come with me. But Rama wants to put her first, and that's part of his duty, and the Ramayana makes it clear that is his duty, is to protect her and take care of her, even if that means more hardship for him. And Sita says, no, I'm not going to be separated from you, I'm coming with you. And so they have an argument back and forth, and in Valmiki Ramayana, so this is part of the second chapter. And in Valmiki Ramayana, Valmiki makes it very clear. Sita does not mince words. This isn't like her husband telling her no and she's protesting weakly and being oh, but you're saying that. But she's standing there, she's strong. She says, I'm your wife, it is my duty to come with you. And what kind of a coward are you that you don't think you can protect your wife in the forest? She's harsh. She expresses her mind. She says, you think you can't take care of me. I thought my parents got me married to this wonderful warrior, but you're apparently just so weak and you're basically like a little girl. You can't even protect your own wife. And Rama's like, okay, I mean, if that's the way you feel, you can come with me. So that's like the first time we see any conflict between the two of them, and Sita's not backing down. She's not being submissive. She's not just listening. She's not backing down. Okay, so when's the next time we see like a real conflict between Rama and Sita? So they go to the forest. They're there. Ravana kidnaps Sita. He takes her with him. And now they're in Lanka, and Rama has to come save her. So Rama comes and saves Sita. And then Rama is in this very conflicting position, right? So on the one hand, he's a husband. He doesn't want to be without his wife. He loves his wife, like she is half of him. There's nothing he values more in the world. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those feelings in a later part today, because it's beautiful. It's like Rama is my favorite god, and this is the reason why, is because he's so human, and he's so beautiful, and he's so compassionate and caring about his wife. But on the other hand, he's a king. And as a king, that duty comes first, because that is something he owes to thousands of people, whereas being a husband is something that he only owes to the one person. And he's worried that his kingdom is not going to be able to respect his wife, and he can't be a good king if the people don't respect him and the people don't respect his queen. So he can't take Sita back. Now, frequently, one of the things people say about the Ramayana when they want to point out errors in it is they say, oh, Rama was so mean to Sita, he rescued her and then he forced her to jump in the fire. If you read the Ramayana, that is not what Rama does. What Rama says is, I'm a king, and so my duty is to my people, so I can't take you back. I rescued you because it's also my dharma to rescue you. It's my job to protect you. And he kidnapped you and took you away, so I have to rescue you. But I can't take you back because my duty is as a king. You are free to do whatever you want in your life. I can't take you back. You can marry anyone you want. You can go anywhere you want. You can do anything you want. I will give you all the riches. I will give you everything. I will give you my full support. But I can't take you back. And it's Sita who says, you're not fulfilling your dharma. What you're doing is wrong. This is not how you're supposed to treat me. You married me, and you're supposed to treat me better than this. I understand that you have your dharma as a king, but you also have a dharma to me, and it's not being fulfilled. And you know what? Fine, you said I can do whatever I want. I'm not interested in marrying anyone else. I'm not interested in riches. I'm not interested in living without you. And it's her decision to jump in the fire. So I think that's important, because it's very important to note that, again, this is not her just being submissive. This is her taking her life into her hands and making a decision about it. We might not agree with her decision. We might not like her decision. Her decision might make us sad, but we need to accept the fact that she was an independent actor in this situation who made a choice for herself. And then the third episode where we see kind of a Rama-Sita conflict. So we've seen two so far, and Sita hasn't backed down in either one of them. The third episode where we see a Rama-Sita conflict is actually not part of the Ramayana at all. As we learned yesterday during our Jeopardy game, Valmiki Ramayana ends when Rama and Sita return to Ayodhya. That is where the canon ends. That's the end of the story. And Bhavabhuti, who's a poet, wrote a play much later about what happened after Rama and Sita returned to Ayodhya. Now, there are people who believe this to have also happened and have been true. There's reasons to believe that Lava and Kusa, Rama and Sita's two children, actually existed. So perhaps the rest of the story was true. Perhaps someone wrote a story based on their existence. We don't really know what happened, but let's accept the fact that maybe it was true and talk about it that way anyway. So Rama and Sita returned to Ayodhya after Ravana's thing, after they killed Ravana and defeat Ravana. And then everything Rama feared comes true. There's someone in his kingdom who has a conflict with his own wife, and in the process says, you know what? I'm not like Rama, okay? I'm not just gonna accept you back no matter who you've been with. And Rama hears about this, and he says, I can't rule a kingdom if my people don't respect me. And it is my duty as the king to rule this kingdom or to stop being king. So he tries to give up his kingdom to Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrugna. He says, one of you guys just take this kingdom from me, and then I can go away and be happy with my wife. And they say, no, you're better than us. You're supposed to be the king. You're a much better ruler. We just live here to serve you. We don't want to be king. So then he says, okay, well, if you guys won't take the kingdom, then I'm stuck being king. So now my only option is that I can't be with Sita. Because I can't rule this kingdom if my people don't respect me. And as long as Sita is the queen, they're not going to respect me. And so then, in this play, so again, let's keep in mind that this is not canon, this is a play. He sends Sita away to the forest. After basically trying every other thing he could have done to keep both of his dharmas. And so now we've found the third point of conflict, right? So now this is the thing that people really get on with the Ramayana. They say, oh, he sent Sita away. Well, first of all, that wasn't in the actual Ramayana, that was in a play. Second of all, he didn't really want to send Sita away. It wasn't like he heard something bad and was like, I'm looking for the first excuse to get rid of my wife. He really wanted to not have to do this. And the third thing is, Sita does not just lie down and take it. So Lakshmana takes her to the forest and he leaves her there. And he says, okay, this is what happened and this is why I'm having to leave you in the forest. And Sita says, okay, I understand the conflict Rama was going through. He's right, he can't rule a kingdom if they don't respect him. And he does have his duties as a king. Now, what gave him the right to make me leave? I'm a queen. I also have the same responsibilities that he does. I understand that he can't rule the kingdom if they don't respect him. So, if he'd only told me that this was the problem, I would have left. And then it wouldn't have been Rama sent Sita away. Rama wouldn't have had a bad reputation. Sita wouldn't have gotten a bad reputation because her husband sent her away. It could have just been Sita left for the good of her kingdom. He lost me that ability. I had the right to be able to do that, and he didn't trust me enough to give me that choice. And so she said, okay, send that message back to Rama. I'm not going to come back to the kingdom. I'll stay away. I understand. But send the message back to Rama that this should have been my decision. And I would have made the same decision, but it should have been mine. And then she stays in the forest. She raises her children. They meet Rama again. She hands the children over to Rama, says, okay, here are your heirs, they're going to serve the kingdom. And then Rama says, why don't you come back to Ayodhya with me? So this is the fourth time she's disagreeing with him vocally, verbally, loudly now. He says, no. You're right, you had two dharmas. You had the dharma of a king, you had the dharma of a husband. You were right to choose the dharma of the king, but you chose that dharma. And now I'm going to choose what works for me. I'm not coming back to Ayodhya, I'm done with that. And so that is when Sita finally leaves this avatar as Sita and becomes Lakshmi again. So that's the end of that play. So submissiveness, Sita, frequently in Western society, seen as the most submissive woman in Hindu history. She's supposed to be the perfect woman and she's seen as the most submissive. And every time she disagrees with her husband, every time there's a conflict between her and her husband, she speaks up. She speaks up loudly. She does not back down. So I think we can determine that she wasn't very submissive. Now, where does this concept of submissiveness come from? So we said Anasuya and Sita in the Aranya-parva of the Ramayana, which is the third chapter. They have a detailed talk where Anasuya tells Sita what it means to be a good wife. And what Anasuya says in great detail is she says, don't be like one of those wives who tries to control their husband. Follow your husband. And so that's where people get this idea of to be a good wife, you have to follow your husband, you're not supposed to tell him what to do. But clearly that's not what Sita is doing. And Anasuya, who's already established as a Pativrata, hears what Sita has to say, and since you're doing it, like I'm very glad to see you. Like my life, like it brings me so much happiness to have met you and to have talked to you about this. So what is going on there? The subtext of what Anasuya is saying is not don't tell your husband when he's wrong. It's don't try to control your husband away from his dharma. It is your job to support him in his dharma, not to drag him away from his dharma. And with any two people, what is best for me might not always be what's best for you. If Mahika and I are roommates, it might be best for me if Mahika acts a certain way, but it might not be best for her. And as a good friend, it would be my responsibility to make sure that she doesn't give up what's good for her and her dharma for me. Similarly, in a marriage, it's a lot harder because lives are so intertwined. What they're saying is don't make your husband give up his dharma for you. Don't be the kind of wife that pulls him away from his dharma. Be the kind of wife that supports him in his dharma. But that also does not mean that if your husband's straying away from dharma, don't tell him that. It's just let him do whatever he wants. And we have examples of that throughout the Ramayana. So we have Mandodari and Ravana. So Ravana is going to war for all of this. And Mandodari is his wife, and she keeps telling him again and again and again, she says, what you're doing is wrong, you're treating that woman badly, you're not allowed to do that, it's immoral, it's awful. And throughout, they keep having this conversation back and forth where Mandodari is telling Ravana that he's wrong. And she's on this list of Pativrata. And then at the end of it all, Ravana dies, and Mandodari comes out after Ravana dies, to the battlefield. And she says, I told him this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. On the one hand, she says, this is my husband, I'm crying. But on the other hand, I told him this was going to happen. I've been telling him this entire time. Similarly, in the Ramayana, there's the story of Vali and Sugriva. And Vali's wife, her name is Tara, also repeatedly tells him, don't do this. Don't go to war. Don't fight your brother. Give him his part of the kingdom. Bring him back in. And he doesn't listen to her. And he goes out to fight, and he dies on the battlefield. And you see her come out, and Valmiki gives this brilliant description of how anguished she is. Her husband's dead. Her husband, who is one of the most powerful men alive, and he has the strength so that if someone's coming to fight him, he takes half of their strength into him. And he's that powerful, and he's dead. And they shot him kind of illegally. Rama has to kill him from behind a tree because that's the only way you can defeat him, and he's doing adharmic things. And she comes out, and she's angry, and she's anguished, and she's so angry that the entire Vanra army just retreats and goes away because they can't deal with her anger. Rama and Lakshmana are afraid to see her anger because she is this great person, and she's so angry, and she's so upset. And in all of that, she says, I told him this was adharmic. He shouldn't have done this, and now he's paying the price for it. And she calls her son over and she says, Rama killed your father, but he killed your father because your father did something wrong. She makes the balance between respect your father because he was a great man, but also now go serve Rama because he's on the side of Dharma. And so you have these women who disagree frequently with their husbands. So submissiveness, maybe not a huge thing that people expect of Hindu women. Being chaste. The concept of a pativrata is to be loyal to your husband, loyal to your dharma. You've made a vow that this person is who you're going to be with, right? So be loyal to that. It doesn't mean give up everything you want in life, right? So you have Draupadi. Draupadi is married to 5 different men, and she's considered a pativrata. And it's because she was loyal to the vow that she made to be married to those 5 men, right? And you have Rukmini, who's supposed to be the perfect wife. And one of the most romantic pieces of poetry in Sanskrit is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I have the chapter and verse name in my laptop. I don't have it with me right now. But Rukmini writes a love letter to Krishna, asking him to come take her away and marry her. And it is one of the most romantic things. It starts with like, oh, Bhuvana Sundara, oh, most beautiful man in the universe. I saw you. I heard about your beauty. And I heard that you would be a lover like no other. Come, marry me, take me away. She lists the rest of his qualities. She lists his intellect and his power. But there are paragraphs about how beautiful Krishna is and how attractive he is and like his features and how he's going to be an unparalleled lover, and she wants him to come take me away and marry me. And Rukmini is considered one of the most perfect wives. She's considered devout. She's considered like one of the perfect Hindu women. It doesn't mean don't ever even think about these sorts of things. There are boundaries. There's vows you make. There are commitments you make. And when you make those vows, you stick to them. And that's kind of the context of being chaste as a Hindu woman. And then the last thing on our list is this concept of powerlessness. That as a perfect Hindu woman, you're somehow supposed to, the men are running everything, they're making all the power plays, and you're just sitting there and you're powerless. And the perfect example against that is, we were talking about the Mahabharata. So the first game of dice, every great person in that entire kingdom, so this is one of the greatest kingdoms in Indian history. The Kuru dynasty is one of the most powerful, greatest dynasties in Indian history. You have Bhishma, Drona, Vidura, you have the Pandavas. This court is the court that's ruling almost all of India. And horrible things are happening there. And horrible things are happening there because the wrong people were being allowed to make decisions and the wrong people were being told the wrong things. And horrible, horrible things are happening there. And there's all of these great people. Each person is described as the most valorous, the strongest, the most dharmic person you will ever meet. And there's a court full of these people. And there's a court full of these men. And not a single one of them is doing anything. In the Mahabharata, they describe 3 people who stand up, 4 if you include Krishna, the 3 people who stand up strongly against what's happening to Draupadi. The first is when a message is sent into so Draupadi is visiting with Duryodhana's wife, Bhanumati. So the first is a message is sent to the room where Draupadi and Bhanumati are, saying Draupadi should be brought to the court. And they say no, and then they say, no, you have to. And Bhanumati says, this is my kingdom, my husband's on the throne, or essentially on the throne, and I'm the queen here. And I say, absolutely not. Go back and tell your people that she's not coming. And Dusasana comes to drag Draupadi out of there, and Bhanumati stands up for her and says, she's not coming. And they throw her down, and they drag Draupadi out. Draupadi herself stands up for herself. She calls out, as we learned earlier today, she calls out every single man in that court, and she says, this is who you're supposed to be. You're letting this happen. This is who you're supposed to be. You're letting this happen. Is there no dharma in this court? I heard, when my father got me married to the Pandavas, we heard that this court was this powerful court full of dharmic people. Is this really what your dharma is? This is who you guys are. She calls them out. She's loud, she's powerful, she calls everyone out. And then Gandhari, who is Duryodhana's mother, comes out. And she says, what are you doing to your daughter-in-law of this kingdom? What do you guys even think you're doing? And she speaks out against her son, against her husband, and she says, do you know who Draupadi is? Do you know how Draupadi was born? Do you know what's going to happen to this dynasty if you treat her like this? If you treat any woman like this, but if you treat her like this, you're all going to be ruined. Like, you are causing your own destruction. And Gandhari is the one who forces her husband to put a stop to this all. So we have 3 powerful women who all make powerful statements, standing up, where none of the men are able to move. none of the men are able to say a word. And then Draupadi herself, so Dhritarashtra apologizes to Draupadi for what happened in his court, and he grants her 2 boons. And in the first, she says, give Yudhishthira his freedom back. And then in the second boon, she says, now give him back his brothers and everything else he's lost. And it is Draupadi who wins back the entire kingdom and themselves for the Pandavas. She has to save them. So she's definitely not powerless. That's definitely not what we're going for. And again, she's on the list of the women who are considered to be perfect. So these were like the 3 examples I wanted to go through. The other thing that I wanted to briefly mention was, so these are kind of our defense to the things that people keep saying about Hinduism and women in Hinduism. But even looking out further, going back to this question, is Hinduism fundamentally feminist? I think one of the biggest issues that feminists today have with the world the way it currently is the way we deal with emotion. We brand women as way too emotional and therefore kind of useless, and we force men to be kind of the exact opposite of that. It's like, don't be emotional, don't show emotion. And that's a huge struggle, and like that's a huge struggle in America right now. And I think it's one thing that really strikes me about our texts, about the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, is the way we deal with the concept of emotion. As we've been told again and again this weekend, emotion is something that you have to express it. You can't let it take over who you are, but you have to express it. And some of the most beautiful passages I found is the way they contrast the way men in these epics deal with emotion versus the way the women in these epics deal with emotion. And they both show these emotions, they both express them, but more often than not, in these comparative situations, they show men letting these emotions take over their personalities, whereas women are able to kind of keep that balance. So a couple of those examples are, as I said, Tara and Mandodari. When their husbands died, it's a very clean balance of like, on the one hand, it is destroying them on the inside that their husbands have died. That anguish is clear, that anger, the upsetness, the sadness, the fact that they're going to miss their husbands, all of that is made very, very clear. On the other hand, they're able to keep their level-headedness to a large extent, and they're able to stay on the side of the Dharma. They're able to say, oh, Rama was doing the dharmic thing, so I will send my son with him, I will support him, I will accept the fact that what he was doing was dharmic. The other beautiful example is Rama and Sita themselves. So when Ravana kidnaps Sita from Panchavati, she's alone. And so Rama and Lakshmana return to their cottage essentially and find it empty. And Lakshmana is feeling guilt because it was his job to protect her, and he drew the line and the thing saying, okay, don't cross it and everything, but he wasn't able to protect her. And you in that scene see just how much Rama cares about his wife. Rama is this perfect man. He's a perfect warrior. He defeated Rakshasas at the age of 16. He feels no fear. His father told him to go to the forest. He went to the forest. He's able to kind of give everything up. He's able to be this perfect man. And he is this perfect man. As Acharya Arun pointed out, perfect is not a good enough word to describe who Rama is. But in that scene, Rama completely breaks down. There's verse after verse after verse. So the chapters in the Ramayana are divided into sargas, which are like sub-chapters. And there's 5 or 6 sub-chapters with multiple slokas, 15 or so slokas I think in each one, that are just about Rama being so sad that Sita is missing. He says, she was here with me every step of the way. Never has a wife been as supportive as Sita has been to me. Without her, what is the point of life? Without seeing her smile, what is the point of being here? Every single thing he sees reminds him of her, and he says, without her enjoying this, what am I doing here? You see him almost lose the will to go on. so upset. This is part of him. This is the best part of him, in his opinion, that's been taken away from him. And so you see Rama like completely fall, and like Lakshmana is saying, it's okay, we'll find her. And Rama is able to get back to that. But you see in those moments his ability to completely feel that emotion. And that's part of what makes him perfect. Is that he is human. When he loses something so dear to him, he's able to accept that pain and able to feel that. And in those chapters, the chapter right before it and the chapter right after these chapters describing Rama, are Sita's discussions with Ravana. And Sita is standing there, Ravana has kidnapped her. Her case looks completely hopeless. She doesn't even know if Rama and Lakshmana are going to be able to figure out who has taken her. And Sita is standing there throwing insults at Ravana. Like, as we were told, even their insults were poetic. So she compares him to a dog. She says, my husband, he was so great, he's going to destroy you. Like, you're going to die. You're not even worth as much as a blade of grass to me. I'm not even going to grace you with a word after this. And so she's just completely destroying him. And she's being kidnapped and taken away, and she's like throwing her jewelry overboard, hoping that he'll find it. She's clearly upset, she's clearly angry, she's showing all of those emotions, and she's keeping her intellectual steadiness. So it's really interesting to see that, like, all over the place, this is what we're seeing. In every scene, Ravana gives in to his, he gives in to his lust, he gives in to his anger, he gives in to his pride. And that's what makes him fight Rama. He knows he's going to lose. At one point in the war, he has the ability to kind of give it up. His sons have died, his brother has died. He has the ability to stop, and he says, no, I have to keep going because my pride. And he's given into that. And Mandodari, on the other hand, is able to, her husband is trying to marry another woman. This entire war is so her husband can marry a different woman. But she's able to kind of keep her intellectual peace and able to counsel her husband and try to push him in the direction of dharma. So Hinduism is a religion where, emotion is not seen as a weakness. It's seen as something you need to express.